like the last 15 months, that's been what it's been like for people who come to our organizations and churches. With this Corona stuff, people kind of pop in online and then they disappear. And now that things are lifting, people are coming out of the caves, out of hibernation. They're all going, they're all stretching. And I was sharing earlier this week with some friends that it feels like the end of Prohibition. If you look back in history, after the end of Prohibition, there was this season where everybody left their homes. They went out to the clubs and to the bars and wherever they couldn't go, and they partied. And they just kind of threw themselves into reckless abandon. And the last place they were going was to a church because they've been cooped up for so long. And I feel like that's definitely the season that at least people that I'm talking to, different leaders, that's the season we're in, especially in summer when people disappear. Here in Michigan, everybody goes up north where they have bear crossing signs everywhere. I think I saw Bigfoot a couple weeks ago. It was wild. What all the experts are saying on podcasts and on online conferences is this will be the biggest fall ever. Everybody's going to go back to church after they go back to school. And I would love to jump on that bandwagon. But when I push back and I ask different speakers who are saying this, why do you think everybody's going back to church this fall? They'll just say, oh, it's just in my gut. I think their gut just wants to sell more books and more conference tickets because I'm not 100% convinced. I see the pandemic accelerating what was already happening in the church, which was hemorrhaging out young people. So I've been in full-time ministry for 20 years. And the first year that I was in ministry full-time as a youth pastor, I went to a conference put on by Group Magazine, which still exists today. There was a speaker from the UK, and his words have haunted me for almost 20 years. Anytime I want to throw in the towel and give up, which if you're in ministry, that's like every day, I think about this guy's words. He said that the UK church, and this would have been in 2001, was hemorrhaging out thousands of young people every week. They viewed the church as judgmental, hypocritical, out of touch, and maybe even based on legends, not based on reality. And he stood in front of this space of thousands of youth workers, and he said, listen, God has not called me to be original, but to be effective. So that's the first thing that's always stuck with me, is that you and I do not need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to serving people, loving people, doing ministry. We've been called to be effective, not original. So I want to throw out ideas to you today and take them if they work and be effective. But the second thing he said, as the church was hemorrhaging out young people in the UK, is that one day we will all stand before God, Hebrews 13, and give an account. And church leaders are held to a higher standard, which should cause us to approach what we do with fear and trembling. And he said, when I stand before the Father, I want to at least say that I tried to do something. And that's really my hope and my prayer in this new season, is that we try to do something. Because what happens in the UK eventually gets to the US. So in the 1960s, the Beatles took off like a rocket. 12 months later, they took off like a rocket in the US. So what the pandemic has done has accelerated what was already on the landscape for the church. We live in a time where 43% of millennials, and so that's young adults who are 32 and younger. I think half of the people on this call are millennials. Welcome. 43% of millennials stated that they either don't know, don't care, or don't believe God exists. That's from a research by Arizona Christian University that came out 2.5 weeks ago. There's another study about Gen Z, which is our current teenage population, that's far worse. And so we can either go, oh, woe is me. This is horrible. The world is going to hell in a handbasket. Or we can say, buckle up, Buttercup. We've been called to rise up for such a time as this. We have an opportunity. We have people who are hungry for connection because they've been locked up for 14 months watching Tiger King on Netflix. They're desperate for truth because when they go on Instagram, when they go on Yahoo News, anything that the culture thinks is okay scrolls across their screen, and it's always changing. So it may feel like prohibition today, but we have the opportunity to reach out and reach into people's hearts and lives with grace and with truth. So do I think a lot of people are coming back this fall? I hope so, but I'm not going to bet the farm on it. I'm starting to think that it's going to be Christmas and New Year's before you see people get spiritually restless, spiritually curious, and come seeking what it is that we have, the hope of the world. In the meantime, you're going to continue to see and hear stories of churches that sadly don't make it. Oh, I see on the chat, no voice on my side. Brother Jonathan, I failed to hear your voice. I just see the video. So you want to turn up your sound. So you want to turn up your sound. I think this is our friend that's tuning in from Kenya. So you want to turn up your sound. Maybe if Anthony could get a whiteboard and maybe just write down directions for how to turn up your sound on the computer, that might help our friend Michael. Very good. So while Michael is getting tuned back in, and that's pretty incredible that we've got people in Kenya tuning in. That's amazing. I wanted to share just one example of what is happening in church world. Just like with the American shopping mall experience, the pandemic has accelerated the rate of people pulling out of brick and mortar. So I walked through our shopping mall here locally on Sunday, and I counted, and over 50% of the stores are empty. In 10 years, my children are not going to grow up in a world where they go to the mall to go shopping. When they drive by, it will no longer be a shopping mall. It'll be an Amazon distribution center, or it may be a church startup. But because you see that acceleration of what was already happening in the mall, that's also what's happening in the American church. The acceleration of the demise of unfruitful, unfaithful, unhealthy churches, which is sad because the church is the hope of the world. We have the greatest message. So there's a lot of churches and church leaders that I follow around the country for inspiration, for encouragement and motivation and ideas. One of them is Rain City Church. And Rain City Church is in Washington State. They started about 8 or 9 years ago. And my friend Michael is still sending me messages, so I'm just going to write back to him real quick. They have great creativity, great sense of humor. And last week I went to their site just to see what they were up to, always just looking for new ideas. And I was stunned because there was a video on the front page. And so when I clicked play, I really wasn't prepared for what they had to say. I thought that it would be helpful and in a strange way encouraging for you to see this. So let me pull up this video for just a moment, and then I'll come back on the other side.
Hey, Rain City. I remember about 11 years ago, before we launched this church, that while we were prepping to plant what would become Rain City Church, Marissa and I were reading a blog, and it said that you only launch one church in your lifetime. And what the author meant is that whether we knew it or not, there was a Herculean task that was set before us. And launching a church from the ground up completely independently is easily the biggest and toughest thing that we've ever done in our lifetimes. And it's a task that you really only have enough energy to do once in a lifetime.
It required all of our effort, enthusiasm, and emotional energy, and our lives looked very, very different then. We were 11 years younger when we launched this church, in our early 30s. Liam, our oldest, was 5.5, Finn was 2.5, and Harper wasn't even born yet. That was a very different season than we're in now. We're both in our early 40s and feeling it. Liam is 16, Finn is 13, and Harper is 8 now, and we're both really tired. As I'm sure every one of you has also experienced, this last year has brought with it a deep exhaustion, and it's been really hard.
And this last year has affected Rain City Church in a really significant way. I mean, we saw people leave because they were frustrated that we weren't meeting soon enough. We saw people leave because they thought we were trying to meet again too soon. We saw people leave because we taught the Bible in a way that didn't align exactly with their political party of choice. We saw people leave because they thought we didn't take a strong enough stance on social issues. We saw people leave because they thought we took too strong of a stance on social issues. We saw people leave because they thought that the Enneagram was satanic. We saw people leave because they thought we weren't doing enough. We saw people leave because they were relocating for a new job. We saw people leave because they wanted to move to a more affordable area. We saw people leave because they were moving to be closer to family, and countless other reasons. But the bottom line is this: we saw a lot of people leave. And then on top of all that, as you probably remember, because of the reality of COVID and not being able to meet for the last over a year, we had to lay off our entire staff last summer and try to figure out how to reinvent church during a quarantine with just me and Matt on staff. But now, because of the vaccine, things are starting to open up again, and with that reality, we've been faced with the very difficult decision of what to do next. And for these last few months, we've been talking and praying and trying to determine whether or not we have the energy to relaunch this church from the ground up again.
And we're reminded of what that blog said 11 years ago. You only launch a church once in a lifetime. And to be honest, we've been so tired for the last 4 or 5 years and feel like we've given everything we can give to this place. We lost our house when we first planted this church. We almost lost our adoption. We've lost friendships. We've given our time, energy, heart, and soul to this place because we truly believe in and love this community and what it stands for.
And as difficult as this is for us to say, we feel like it's time for us to move on to whatever God has next. We don't know what that is yet, but just like we trusted His leading when we started this church, we are trusting His leading again to this next unknown chapter. This has been such a difficult decision, especially for me, because I feel like I'm letting so many people down. But after a lot of prayer, thought, and counsel, we both feel that this is the healthiest move that we can make for ourselves and for our family.
These last 11 years have brought us every kind of high and low you can experience. We've had our hearts filled by this beautiful community and are so proud of you. We're so proud of the generosity that you've shown and that we've been able to give away over $1.3 million over the last 10 years.
We're so proud of the impact that we've been able to make through our partners, All God's Children International, Charity Water, and Water for Good. We're so proud of the way that each of you have loved each other so well. We're proud of the way that we've made such a positive impact right here in our own community.
Rain City, we are so proud of you and we love you so much. Thank you for allowing us to lead you for these last 10 years. Sorry.
And maybe you can wipe away a tear. So I'd love to, before I can go further, just get your feedback on that. Can you relate to that? Or did anything in that surprise you? So I'd love to just hear some feedback for a moment.
It's heartbreaking. Rough. Like, it makes you wonder, like, why they decided, fully to close their doors. Like, what was that final point for them? And you feel for them on a million levels.
Yeah. And that is not a unique story. I've received messages from other church leaders, church planters who either the pain of ministry was just too much and they needed to move on, or some church plants just financially could not make it through this pandemic. And it is heartbreaking. You can hear the pain in their voice and you hear the sacrifices, and it just sounds like it's almost like they were a piñata and they just took one too many hits. And I get that. My wife and I, over a decade ago, started a church from scratch in Ohio. And 3.5 years into it, we had to get out just for our emotional health. And so we successfully merged with another church, but it's still the death of a dream. It's still a heartache. And you're going to continue to see and hear these stories in the months ahead, because crises accelerate what was already happening. And what's happening in the church is an acceleration of church closures and a general public that is increasingly post-Christian. And so we can either sit on our thumbs and go, oh, woe is us, and I'm going to do church just for us four, no more. Or we can see it as an opportunity to actually be missionaries, to set aside our wants and hopes for ourselves, and instead be the church that Jesus dreamed of in Matthew 16. A church where everyone's welcome, nobody's perfect, a church that is an outpost of grace, a place where people can come, ask questions, bring their hiccups, hangups, hurts, heartaches, bring their doubts, and feel like they belong before they believe. We've been watching this brilliantly produced show called The Chosen, which is all about the life of Jesus, that's currently in production. And when you see their representation of Jesus, you don't see someone who's angry and pointing fingers and screaming out religious truths at people, but instead it's a casual, conversational Jesus who shares stories about the kingdom of God. And that's much closer to the heart of what you see in the scriptures. That's what we've tried to live out here at Life Church over the last 8 years. And that's a big part of why we've been able to connect with Gen Z and millennials so well. So my heart is to motivate, encourage, inspire you to be fearless going forward, to seize whatever opportunities, whatever resources God has given you, and go for it, to reach the lost at any cost. So that's the heart behind doing these kinds of live coaching. Not that we've got it all figured out, not at all, but instead to say, hey, we've got a few things that have worked for us. God has not called us to be original. He's called us to be effective. So we want to share what we've learned, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And if it helps you, great. And if it doesn't apply to you, ignore it. It's just like when you go fishing and you go to eat your fish, you eat the meat, you spit out the bones. Very good. Our friend Michael says, now I can hear you. Michael, unmute yourself. You introduce yourself for just a moment before we continue on. Got to hit the mute button on the bottom left. All right. We still can't hear you, buddy, but I'm glad you can hear us. You got to hit that unmute button. Probably by the end of this, we will be able to finally hear from Michael. It'll be great. So here we go. Looking ahead to after the summer, because right now everybody's on vacation. People will get back into their rhythms, hopefully when they return to school. Although there's a new study that just came out yesterday, reported by Axios. You can Google this. Axios reports that this fall, economists believe that there's going to be the Great Resignation, that upwards of 40% of the American workforce will be resigning from their jobs to take on more lifestyle-centric jobs. So people have been cooped up at home for 14 months. They've had extra time on their hands to reevaluate their lives. And according to Axios and this study by researchers, nearly 40% of the American workforce may leave their current job to go after a passion of theirs so they can spend more time at home or more time with their family. And if that Great Resignation happens, then I think there'll be further disruptions that will echo into the church. So I'm actually preparing for the end of September as if people are coming, but I'm expecting it not to happen till Christmas, New Year's. What we want to do is take this season, this time now, to rethink, retool, and relaunch, because what we did in the past will not work today. So Anthony, if you want to unmute yourself, you just came on staff here at Life Church. You came from Ohio. We won't hold that against you.
Yeah.
But you came from a church that's in a denomination, and you were able to see what other churches in Ohio were doing. What did you see during the pandemic that churches were trying to do, but maybe came off as tone deaf, or maybe
Can you
didn't
hear me
connect? Yep.
First? Okay. I think something that a lot of churches, including the one I came from, fall into is thinking that there has to be almost like a church-wide unanimous vote to do things. And I think that can very quickly kill momentum in a church. And you can't have anything killing momentum in a time like this, where gaining momentum is the only way to get through it.
That's good. Yeah. So I grew up in a very traditional church in a denomination, and you're right. Anytime we wanted to change the paint color, we had to hold a vote.
Yeah.
Anytime a donor gave money to the church, they could write down what they wanted the money to go toward, instead of following Acts chapter 4, where you just lay at the feet of the church leadership because they know what the greatest needs are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of things that we tried, which are fantastic, but the church is not known for innovation and for creativity. And what blew me away is that Christian thought leaders on social media and at conferences had really nothing new to share.
Mm-hmm.
Because in America, we've created this evangelical Christian subculture where you go to this Christian leadership conference and you follow this guy on Twitter. And after 20 years, I can tell you, they're just sharing their greatest hit messages. And it's made me rethink the whole idea of Christian leadership in North America, because things that were shared, for example, at Catalyst Conference in 2005 are being recycled today. And as I just said, what worked yesterday will not work today. So here are some fresh ideas. I just shared some documents in the chat. If you're unable to access them, then let me know and I'll be happy to email them to you. In fact, if you could just take a second in the chat and share your email address, I want to send a bunch of free materials to you after we're done together here today. And it's free, so you get what you pay for. But I just shared with you the statistics about millennials. Here is a mission and strategy document that we're working on here at Life Church that we have not rolled out yet to all of our lifers, but we will be very shortly. And in fact, some of the lifers are on here and on Instagram Live, so they get to see it for the first time. I'm going to share my screen here with the document, which you can also grab the document. It says Fall 2021. So we marry the mission, but we date the strategy. And our mission at Life Church has been the same since day one, that we want to reach people that would never darken a church door. We want to reach the lost at any cost. We want to make it hard for people in our area to go to hell. We want to make heaven crowded. So to bring clarity to that, we've brought some new language that's easier to remember, that's sticky. People are busy in your church. If you want to grab their hearts with a vision, a picture of what could be and what should be, you have to simplify your language. Make it simple to remember. It should fit on a bumper sticker or on a t-shirt. So if you've got a mission statement that's a paragraph, your grandma's not going to remember that. If you can keep it to 5 words or less, people can remember that. And leaders not only set the pace, but we create the language for our people. So the language we're trying to now introduce is, why does Life Church exist? Why do we do kids ministry this way? Why do we have that band up there? We want to inspire people to follow Jesus. That's it. That's why we exist. We're not here to twiddle our thumbs, have bake sales, and play church. We want to be the church. We want to inspire people. So we want to grab their imagination. We want to grab their passion and show them that there's something more to life than 401ks and 24/7 video games. There's more passion in their life and purpose than pursuing pornography or getting a buzz from drugs or swiping right. So we want to inspire people. That means everything we do has to grab their attention, has to be something that they're going to think about beyond just the Sunday morning experience. And if I can inspire people to follow Jesus, to show that he's the hero of human history, he is who we were created for, created by, that is going to be a win. inspiring people to follow Jesus, whether it's children, teenagers, single adults, marrieds, retireds, divorcees. We want to inspire people to follow Jesus. And even if they've gone to church all their lives, this mission statement applies to every person in their spiritual walk. Because following Jesus may mean their next step is to get baptized. It could be their next step is to get into a small group. Their next step is to pick up a towel and start serving. You're not defined by a title. You're defined by the towel you carry. So that's the simpler language we're going for, and we're simplifying our strategy. We were doing this intuitively, but never had the language to sum up what we do. So our strategy is to love people, connect with people, and involve people. We want to endear our community, inspire our audience, and equip our core. So endearing our community is we want people in the Great Lakes Bay region to know we're here. We exist. We want people to be happy we're here. Oh yeah, you're the church that does the Easter egg helicopter drop. That's a fun thing for the families. We just started doing faith and family nights at the ballpark, and we've gotten so much positive feedback. When we go there, are we handing out Bible tracts? No, because that's weird. We're handing out swag bags full of cool, fun stuff that they're going to take home that has our logo on it. That way, if they ever have a crisis or they become spiritually restless, they'll pick up this cup that changes colors and they'll go, oh yeah, Life Church at the Ball Diamond. I bet I could go there, and they'd be cool because they gave me this really cool keychain and stuff. And we want people to know that the community is better off because we're here. And we've achieved that notoriety with giving away movie tickets, which we've done for Star Wars movies. The Easter egg helicopter drop. All of these are outreach events, and it's kind of like having a mutual fund. So with a mutual fund, you put some money aside and it goes into the stocks. And if you were to watch your mutual fund every single day, it's not going to do a whole lot. In fact, it's probably going to go down. You got to have a long-term approach. You deposit some money in the mutual fund and then you don't touch it for a long time. And slowly it builds and accumulates interest. That's what we're doing by endearing our community. We're doing no strings attached service, love, fun stuff for the family, and we're making those deposits so that over time we become an important part of the community. We're ensuring that people know we're here, they're happy we're here, and that the community is better off because Life Church is here. So when we went to rent a space in Midland, it was a shot in the dark to call Midland Center for the Arts because I wouldn't think they would rent to a church, but based on our reputation in the community, they wanted us to be in their building. Inspiring our audience, connecting with people is the second part of our strategy. We want to create experiences in the kids area at 707 with student ministry on Sunday mornings, create experiences that cause people to say, I came and I can't wait to come back. So that means our kids area needs to be the best hour in a kid's week. That means when a guest comes on our campus, we want that person to feel like $1 million. We're going to roll out the red carpet. They are important to us. When teenagers come, we want them to leave having connected to one or two people because they are so relational and they need friends. And then lastly, to equip our core is to recruit, to enlist men, women, and teenagers, training them to give to the church, to lead in the church, and to invite their circle of influence to the church. So almost every week from the stage, I'm talking about, hey, go on to Facebook, check in right now, real quick. Let your Facebook friends know you're at Life Church, or take 2 minutes, text 2 friends to come sit with you. We're giving them an easy tool, showing how it's as close as their pocket, and we're normalizing invitations because it's so scary to invite someone. But studies show 87% of people who go to a church for the first time go because of a personal invitation. Only 13% come because they got a mailer or they saw a billboard. Billboards, radio ads are great for creating awareness, endearing the community, but to have a personal invite, that's a game changer. So those are some of the ways that we're trying to come out of the pandemic with a refreshed, clear view of where God is leading us, where we want to be, where we should be, where we could be. Now, do me a favor, in the comments, shoot me your email address. And after we get off of this live coaching call, I will email you access to more documents like this that you can take, run with, share with your team. You can take our logo off of it and put your logo on it, and you don't need to give us credit because we don't care about that. It's just about helping you to fearlessly take more ground for the kingdom. So make sure you share your email address in the chat. With that, I just want to open it up for any questions or thoughts or comments, because I know it has been like a fire hose of information so far.
Hey, John.
Yes, sir.
Hey, man. First off, I just want to thank you for even doing this, man. As busy as you are, I just want to thank you for even doing this. First off, what you've just shared I'm writing notes and everything is absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much for just sharing this. I think that it is truly going to be such a help for pastors and leaders. So thank you again for just sharing it. I appreciate this.
Oh yeah, man. Absolutely. Julian is a church planner down in the Metro Detroit area, and he's killing it. I had the good fortune of getting to meet him last week, and the space that they meet in is amazing. Like, Julian, you should take photos of that and throw that online to inspire other church leaders, because that is really, really cool.
Thank you, sir.
And real quick, give us just a snapshot of what have been the challenges during the pandemic for you as a church leader, and people being afraid to go to church, or not wanting to engage. Give us a snapshot quick.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure, it's been probably one of the I wouldn't say it's been one of the most challenging parts in ministry. Just being having to cater to, there's already they want the temperature a certain temperature, they want the seats to feel a certain way, so it's like they want, so now we have to be extremely cautious about the gatherings and things like that. So we're a smaller church, so we were able to kind of come back a little sooner, which was amazing for us, but it was still it was scary. I'm gonna say it's scary, just because the tracking and making sure no one gets sick and it was a scary season for sure. I'm so thankful that vaccines, and we believe that God's a healer and Jesus can heal. But then you have those who just, are just still afraid, who've lost family members. So just, it's a really sensitive time for the church, I feel. And so for us, the challenge specifically was being able to still gather, but still how are you connected and unconnected at the same time? So that's been, possibly one of the things that we've been trying to deal with, just in the sense of, so you don't want to come to church because of someone sneezed last week. And it literally, I got an email, and I wish I had it. I'll throw it up here, but it literally said 3 Sundays ago, your musician was sneezing and I'm concerned, so I won't be back until he's been vaccinated. And we had to respond back and say, hey, that team member was vaccinated. Thank you so much for your concern. So just, just people being very sensitive, very worried, has been just a big challenge for us, but we're still pushing through.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's like in that video we just shared. Yeah. People, no matter what you do.
Yeah. No matter what.
You cannot make people happy right now, politically, or whether you're open and closed. Yeah. So it is showing grace, trying to love on people, but yet fearlessly moving forward.
Yep. No doubt about it.
Make sure you look. I just shared with you another document on intentional worship programming that we're working through here with our team, as well as website access and the password. The website and the password is just for those of you who are on this call right now. It's not something to share publicly, but that gives you access to even more internal documents that, if they are helpful and effective for you, run with them. You don't have to give us credit. You can just take our logo off and use it. And if it doesn't apply to you, hey, it was free. You get what you pay for. So let me bring this in for a landing, and then we'll see if there's any final questions. In the book of 2 Peter, I've been reading a lot of Peter right now, getting a lot of inspiration from Peter's writings. In the book of 2 Peter, chapter 1, verse 16, I'm reading from the NIV. This is my Bible that my parents gave me when I graduated from college 21 years ago and enrolled in seminary, and it's fallen apart. You know, it's got all these things, paper are falling out of it, lots of writing in there, 21 years of notes. But I love what A.W. Tozer said, that a Bible that is falling apart belongs to someone who is not. So it's a badge of honor to have your Bibles get worn out. In 2 Peter 1, verse 16, at the end of his life, Peter, who's in Rome, he's facing execution. He says in verse 16, "We did not follow cleverly invented stories when we told you about the power and the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. We were eyewitnesses of his majesty." So our faith is not built on because the Bible told me so. The Bible didn't exist when Peter wrote these words. The Bible wasn't put together as we have it today for the first 300 years of Christianity. This movement exploded because of the resurrection, because of an experience. And that's what Peter is saying. And then he says in verse 17, "For Jesus received honor and glory from God the Father when the voice came to him from the majestic glory, saying, 'This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased.' We ourselves heard this voice that came from heaven when we were with him on the sacred mountain." And what Peter is doing is he's remembering 30 plus years in the past, what's called the transfiguration, right? When in Matthew 16, Jesus unleashes the church, that's at Caesarea Philippi, the northern edge of Israel. And then they continued north into modern day Lebanon to Mount Hebron. And at the top of Mount Hebron, that's where Jesus brought Peter, James, and John, and he was transfigured. His majesty and glory was revealed. And it says that Jesus was talking to Elijah and to Moses. And then God the Father spoke over God the Son these words. And 30 plus years later, in 2 Peter chapter 1, he's remembering this. He's in jail. He's facing death by execution. When times get tough in ministry, when you feel like throwing in the towel, when there's not enough money in the offering plate to make the lights stay on, this is what you go back to. You go back to that experience, that calling, when Christ revealed himself to you. And you see that your present challenges, your present sufferings pale in comparison to what matters most, which is Christ and his kingdom. And just like that man 21 years ago from the UK said, I want to be able to say, I tried to do something. So whether you feel like you're a success, or you may feel like you're a failure, you're not a failure if you stay in the game. And that's the most fearless thing you can do when circumstances don't make sense, to stay in the ring, boxing, fighting it out. Every great athlete plays hurt, but that's what makes the Super Bowl glorious. Oh, and someone just wrote preach. You can steal that and use that on Sunday. Any last questions before we wrap up this coaching experience today? Nope. Everybody's like, it's time for coffee, John. Very good. Well, listen, we will turn around a recording of this and put it up on Facebook. So if you don't already follow my public page, it's facebook.com/high5John, high five, because it's the high five state, and then JON, high five JON. In the chat, there's more resources there for you. And then I'll be emailing you some stuff. We'll do this again after the July 4th holiday. So make sure that you are signed up for the weekly emails at jonathanherron.com. And that way you can get the Zoom link. You can invite some other leaders to jump on too. The more the merrier. And I hope this has been helpful for you. If it has, spread the word and let me know what you would love to dig into more in the future. Because again, I just want to be helpful and be effective. But don't give up. If you ever feel like giving up, call me and I'll talk you off the ledge. All right? Sound like a good deal?
Thank you, sir.
All right. You guys keep going after it, okay?
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, y'all. We'll see you later. Thanks.